January 14th, 1979. A modest two-story house in Queens, New York. Late afternoon, Tommy DeSimone walked through the front door expecting a celebration. He thought he was about to be made, a button man, a soldier in the Lucchese family, the brass ring he'd chased since he was a teenager with a stolen pistol in his waistband. Instead, 4 men were waiting in the basement. The door clicked shut behind him. Tommy never walked out. His wife Angela reported him missing the next morning. The body was never found. He was 28 years old. Some say he was strangled with piano wire. Some say he was shot in the back of the head. What everyone agrees on is this. Tommy DeSimone died because he'd killed too many people the wrong way, in front of the wrong eyes, for reasons that had nothing to do with business. This wasn't the cinematic Tommy DeVito you remember from Goodfellas. The real Tommy DeSimone was worse, much worse. Joe Pesci's Oscar-winning performance gave you 2 killings on screen. Billy Bats in the trunk of a car, Spider on the basement floor, 2 bodies, almost an hour and a half of runtime. But the actual Tommy DeSimone, according to FBI files, federal informant testimony, and the original reporting by Nicholas Pileggi in the book Wise Guy, was tied to at least 6 other murders the movie never showed you. Confirmed bodies, witnessed bodies, bodies that explain why the Gambino family wanted him dead. This is the story of those 6 killings, the ones Martin Scorsese cut, the priest's nephew on a sidewalk in Brooklyn, the friend strangled in a car for talking to the wrong cop, the truck foreman beaten to death in a New Jersey field, the Gambino soldier shot in the face on Christmas week, the musician who couldn't finish one job, and the unsanctioned hit that finally signed Tommy's death warrant. Here's what the movie didn't tell you. By the time Tommy walked into that house in Queens in January 1979, he wasn't being hunted because of one drunken night with Billy Bats. He was being hunted because he'd left a trail of bodies stretching back 11 years, and every single one of them was a problem somebody upstairs needed to clean up. You have to understand who Tommy DeSimone really was before the killings start to make sense. Born June 6, 1946, in South Ozone Park, Queens, the youngest of 8 children. His mother, Camilla, raised them in a working-class Italian house where the kitchen never closed, and the rules were strict. His father, Robert, was a laborer, quiet, religious. Tommy was the baby of the family, and he got away with everything. 2 of his older brothers, Anthony and another sibling, had already started running with the Gambinos by the time Tommy was a teenager. His sister Phyllis, when she was just 16 years old, became the mistress of a 30-something Irish-Italian gangster named James Burke, Jimmy the Gent. The man Robert De Niro played in the movie. So Tommy didn't choose this life. He was born into the middle of it. By 12, he was running errands for Wise Guys at Robert's Lounge in Ozone Park. By 14, he was driving stolen cars. By 16, he was a known associate of the Lucchese crime family's Vario crew, run out of a cab stand on Fulton Avenue. Tommy was big, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, thick black hair, a boxer's build. Nothing like the wiry 5'4" Joe Pesci you saw on screen. He carried 2 pistols at all times. 2 .38 specials. That's why his street name was Tommy Two Guns. He wasn't funny. He wasn't charming. People who actually knew him described him as cold, distant. The kind of guy who'd be laughing at a joke one second and breaking your jaw the next, without changing his expression. Henry Hill, who would later testify against him and put dozens of his associates in federal prison, said Tommy was the scariest person he ever met, and Hill knew everybody. Murder number 1. 1968. Tommy is 17 years old. He's walking down a Brooklyn sidewalk with Henry Hill on a summer afternoon. According to Hill's sworn testimony, later corroborated in Pileggi's book Wise Guy, Tommy spotted a man he'd never seen before, a total stranger, a pedestrian, mid-40s. Walking the other direction, Tommy turned to Henry. He smiled. He said, "Henry, watch this." Then he pulled out one of his .38s and shot the man dead in broad daylight. The victim's name was Howard Goldstein. He had no connection to organized crime. No business with Tommy. He was just a man walking home. Hill, stunned, asked Tommy why. Tommy shrugged. He said, "Well, I'm a mean cat," and they kept walking. That story, the one Henry Hill repeated to FBI Special Agent Edward McDonald during witness protection debriefings in 1980, is the foundation of everything that came after. Because Tommy didn't kill Howard Goldstein for money. He didn't kill him for territory. He didn't kill him to send a message. He killed him to prove he could, to Henry, to himself, to anyone watching. That's the difference between a soldier and what Tommy was. A soldier kills for a reason. Tommy killed because killing made him feel real. And once a man crosses that line at 17, he doesn't come back. He just keeps going. Now here's what the FBI eventually pieced together. Between 1968 and 1970, Tommy was working his way up in the Vario crew, under Capo Paul Vario, loan sharking, truck hijackings, cigarette boosting at JFK Airport, standard mob earner work. But Paulie kept getting complaints. Tommy was hurting people who didn't need to be hurt. Customers who paid late were ending up in hospitals. Bookies who short-counted were ending up missing teeth. And then in June 1970, the situation got biblical. William Bentvena, known on the street as Billy Bats, was a made man in the Gambino family. He'd just done 6 years in federal prison for narcotics. June 11th, 1970. The Suite, a nightclub at 156-146 South Conduit Avenue in Queens, owned by Henry Hill. Billy Bats is celebrating his release. He's drinking with friends. Tommy walks in. Words are exchanged about shoeshine boys. Bats mocks Tommy. The room goes silent. Tommy leaves. He comes back 2 weeks later. Bats is at the bar again. This time, Tommy and Jimmy Burke beat Bats unconscious with their fists and a pistol. They drag him to Burke's car. They drive upstate. When Bats starts groaning in the trunk, they pull over near a dirt road in Sullivan County, pop the trunk, and Tommy stabs him repeatedly with a kitchen knife while Burke shoots him. They bury Bats in a shallow grave behind Robert's Lounge. 6 months later, when Burke realizes a strip mall is being built on top of the burial site, they dig the body up and rebury it somewhere in upstate New York. The grave has never been found. But here's what Goodfellas didn't show you. The killing of Billy Bats was unsanctioned. You did not, under any circumstances, kill a made man without permission from his boss. Tommy and Jimmy didn't have permission. They didn't ask. And the moment that body went into the trunk, Tommy DeSimone became a marked man in the Gambino family. They just didn't know who did it yet. Murder number 3 came months later. The man Goodfellas called Spider. The kid who got shot in the foot for not bringing Tommy a drink, then shot dead at a poker game for talking back. His real name in some accounts was Michael Spider Gianco. The reality was less dramatic and more disturbing. Tommy was at a card game in the back room of a social club. He was drunk. He was bored. The kid bartender, a teenage musician who hung around the crew, walked past him. Tommy pulled his .38, put it on the table, and shot the kid in the foot for laughs. Just to watch him scream. 2 weeks later, the kid came back to work in a leg cast. Limping, embarrassed, quiet. Tommy started ribbing him at the same poker table, telling him to stand up, telling him to dance. The kid finally snapped back, told Tommy to leave him alone. Tommy stood up, pulled his pistol, and shot the kid 3 times in the chest at point-blank range. The other man at the table didn't move. Jimmy Burke was furious, not at the killing, but at the mess. Now they had to dig another hole. They buried him under the foundation of Robert's Lounge. Henry Hill helped dig it. He testified about it in 1983. That's 2 of the bodies you saw on screen. Now here come the 6, the movie cut. Murder number 4. The truck foreman, Stanley Diamond. The year was 1972. Tommy and another Burke crew associate were sent to lean on a warehouse foreman in rural New Jersey who'd been talking to detectives about a hijacking. The orders were specific. Rough him up. Scare him. Don't kill him. Witnesses are tolerable. Dead witnesses bring federal investigations. Tommy didn't get the message. He and his partner found the foreman near a gravel parking lot off Route 46. They beat him with tire irons. They kept beating. The foreman stopped moving after about 3 minutes. Tommy stood up, looked at his partner, and said, "Well, he ain't talking now." They left the body in a wooded ditch. According to Henry Hill's later testimony to federal prosecutors, when Burke found out, he didn't speak to Tommy for 2 weeks. Not because Tommy killed a witness, because Tommy did it without thinking, without a plan, without a place to put the body. That's the moment Burke started to realize Tommy was a liability. Murder number 5. This one matters. This one is the one that some accounts have placed in the year 1973, the year of the famous $200 story. The version that circulated through the cab stand on Fulton Avenue went like this. Tommy was short. He needed $200 to cover a gambling debt to a Lucchese bookmaker. He went to an acquaintance, a man who drove a yellow cab in Queens, and asked for the loan. The cab driver, who'd known Tommy for years, said no, said he didn't have it, said his daughter needed shoes. Tommy nodded, walked away, and 3 days later the cab driver was found in the trunk of his own taxi at the long-term parking lot at LaGuardia Airport. 2 bullets in the head. The case was never solved. Henry Hill mentioned the killing in his FBI debriefings as one Tommy bragged about, though the victim's name has never been confirmed in court documents. What's documented is this. Tommy borrowed money constantly. Tommy never paid back. And people who said no to Tommy DeSimone in 1973 had a habit of disappearing. Murder number 6 is the one that haunted Henry Hill until the day he died. Dominic Remo Cersani, Jimmy Burke's best friend. They'd been together since the early 60s. Burke trusted Remo more than he trusted his own wife, but in late 1973, Burke heard a whisper from a contact in the Brooklyn DA's office. Remo had been seen meeting a detective at a diner in Howard Beach. Twice. Burke didn't ask questions. He didn't confront Remo. He picked up the phone and called Tommy. The plan was simple. Tommy would pick Remo up under the pretense of a card game, drive him to Robert's Lounge. The other guys would handle the rest. But Tommy didn't wait. About halfway through the drive, somewhere on the Belt Parkway near the Atlantic Avenue exit, Tommy pulled out a length of piano wire he'd kept under the driver's seat. He looped it around Remo's neck from behind, braced his foot against the dashboard, and pulled until Remo's eyes burst. Remo was a big man. The struggle ripped the upholstery in Tommy's car. When Tommy finally arrived at Robert's Lounge with the body in the back seat, Burke looked at it for a long time. He didn't say anything. They buried Remo behind the bocce court at Robert's Lounge, next to where Spider was already rotting. Henry Hill helped dig that grave, too. He told Pileggi years later that Remo's wife came around the lounge for months, asking if anyone had seen him. Burke would buy her drinks, tell her he'd turn up. Now we get to the killing that, in retrospect, was Tommy's actual death sentence. Murder number 7. December 18th, 1974. Ronald Foxy Giarruthi. 27 years old. A mid-level associate in John Gotti's crew. The Bergen Hunt and Fish Club, out of Ozone Park. Foxy had a reputation as a sharp dresser, a quick earner, and a man who carried a grudge. The trouble started when Tommy began dating Foxy's sister. Some accounts say he assaulted her. Some say he just embarrassed her in public. Either way, Foxy made it known on the street that Tommy DeSimone was a dead man walking. He told people in the Bergen crew. He told his cousins in Howard Beach. He bragged about what he was going to do. Tommy heard about it. Tommy didn't wait for permission. December 18th, 1974. Foxy Giarruthi is at a friend's apartment in Queens. The doorbell rings. Foxy answers. Tommy is standing there. Foxy's face changes. He starts to back up. Tommy raises a .38 and shoots Foxy 3 times in the face at point-blank range. The first shot took out his front teeth. The second shot took off his lower jaw. The third shot was directly between the eyes. Tommy walked back to his car and drove to Robert's Lounge for breakfast. Burke was waiting. When Burke heard what happened, his face went white. Foxy Giarruthi was a Gambino associate, John Gotti's crew. Same family as Billy Batts. And now, Tommy had killed 2 of their men in 4 years without permission. Burke knew, in that moment, that Tommy had a clock on him. The only question was, how long? Now here's the part the movie completely erased. Between 1975 and 1978, Tommy DeSimone served 4 years in federal prison for a hijacking conviction. Tommy went away in 1975. Tommy came home in 1978. And while he was inside, the world changed. Carmine Tremonti, the Lucchese boss who'd protected Tommy, died in prison in 1978. The new Lucchese leadership, under Tony Duck's Corallo, looked at Tommy's file and saw nothing but problems. 2 unsanctioned hits on Gambino men, a trail of bodies, a reputation as a loose cannon. They put a soft contract on him before he even got out, meaning if the right opportunity came up, Tommy didn't have to come back. Murder number 8, Parnell Stax Edwards, December 1978, 8 days after the Lufthansa heist. The Lufthansa heist was the biggest cash robbery in American history at that point. December 11th, 1978. Burke's crew, including Tommy, hit the Lufthansa cargo terminal at JFK Airport and walked out with $5.8 million in cash and another $1 million in jewelry. $6,800,000 total. The plan was airtight except for one detail, the getaway van. Stax Edwards, a 30-year-old aspiring musician and small-time Burke crew associate, was given one job: drive the van to a New Jersey junkyard and have it crushed. Stax did not do this. Stax drove the van to his girlfriend's apartment in Brooklyn, parked it on the street, went inside, smoked some marijuana, and fell asleep. The van sat on a public street for 3 days. Cops found it on December 14th. They lifted prints. The investigation began. Burke was furious. Burke called Tommy. December 18th, 1978, the 4-year anniversary of the Foxy Jarothy killing. Tommy showed up at Stax Edwards' apartment at 156-112 Ozone Park, knocked on the door, and shot him 5 times in the head, 3 shots in the back of the skull, 2 in the temple. Stax was lying face down on his couch when his body was discovered. Tommy and another associate, Angelo Seppi, walked out and drove to a diner. They ate breakfast. Tommy ordered eggs and bacon. He was 27 years old, and Parnell Stax Edwards was the 8th person he had killed by the count federal prosecutors would eventually compile. And here is the scheme that, in the end, killed Tommy. The Lufthansa heist itself. Let me break it down for you. The opportunity. A Lufthansa Airlines worker named Louis Werner had a $40,000 gambling debt to a Lucchese bookie. To clear it, he gave the crew the schedule, the layout, and the access codes for the cash holding area. The inside connection. Werner himself, plus a security guard who'd been bribed for $1,500 to look the other way. The execution. 3:30 in the morning, December 11th, 1978. 6 masked men entered the cargo building. They tied up 10 employees with duct tape. They loaded 14 sacks of currency and 40 pounds of jewelry into a black Ford van. Total time inside, 64 minutes. The money, $5,800,000 in untraceable bills meant for shipment back to American banks from German military bases, plus jewelry. Total take, $6.8 million, the equivalent of about $30 million in today's money. The split, supposed to go to 13 people involved. The problem? Burke didn't pay anybody. Within 3 months of the heist, Burke and Tommy started killing every member of the crew who could potentially talk. By 1980, 10 of the 13 Lufthansa participants were dead. Tommy DeSimone was the 11th, but he was killed for a different reason. He was killed because the Gambinos had finally come to collect for Billy Batts and Foxy Jarothy. Here is how it ended. January 14th, 1979. A few weeks earlier, Tommy had received word through Lucchese soldier Bruno Facciolo that he was about to be made initiated. A button man. The highest honor in the life. Tommy was ecstatic, he told Henry Hill. He told his wife Angela. He bought a new suit. The ceremony was supposed to take place at a private location in Queens. Bruno Facciolo would drive Tommy there. That afternoon, Bruno picked Tommy up in front of the family's house. They drove for 20 minutes. They pulled into the driveway of a residential property in Queens. Tommy walked in first. Bruno walked in second and locked the door behind him. 4 men were waiting in the basement. According to mob informants who later spoke to FBI agent Stephen Carbone, the killing was personally supervised by John Gotti, who had requested the contract from Lucchese leadership in exchange for the Lucchese family's debt over the Foxy Girothi murder. Tommy was reportedly strangled with a rope. Some accounts say he was shot. The body was put into a 55-gallon industrial drum, filled with concrete, and dumped somewhere in the marshlands of Jamaica Bay or possibly the basement of a Bensonhurst social club. It has never been found. Angela DeSimone reported her husband missing on January 15, 1979. The NYPD opened a missing persons file. The case remains open to this day, 47 years later. Tommy was 28 years old. He left behind a wife and 2 young children. Here is what happened to everyone else. Henry Hill was arrested in 1980 on a narcotics charge. He flipped. He went into witness protection. He testified against 50 associates. He died of a heart attack in 1912 at age 69. Jimmy Burke was convicted of fixing Boston College basketball games and later for the murder of Richard Eaton. He died of cancer in federal prison in 1996. Bruno Facciolo, the Lucchese soldier who drove Tommy to his death, was himself murdered on August 30, 1990, by his own crew, who suspected him of being an informant. They cut his throat, stuffed a canary in his mouth as a message, and dumped his body in the trunk of a stolen Cadillac. John Gotti went to federal prison in 1992 and died there in 2002. Paul Verio, Tommy's old capo, died in federal prison in 1988. Here is what the Tommy DeSimone story actually reveals about organized crime. Goodfellas wanted you to believe that Tommy died because he killed Billy Batts. That was the dramatic frame. But the truth is messier. Tommy died because he never understood the difference between violence and business. The Mafia, for all its mythology, was always a corporation that used murder as a management tool. Killings had to make sense. Killings had to generate income, eliminate threats, or maintain order. Tommy killed because killing was fun. He killed strangers on sidewalks. He killed friends in cars. He killed teenagers at poker tables. He killed cab drivers over $200 loans. He killed without thinking, without planning, without permission. And in a business where every dead body had to be justified to a boss, Tommy generated more bodies than any boss could justify. That's why he had to go. Not because of one drunken night, because of 11 years of unsanctioned killings, because of the priest's nephew on a sidewalk, because of the cab driver in the airport parking lot, because of the foreman in a New Jersey ditch, because of Foxy Girothi with 3 holes in his face. Because the FBI was now watching, the Gambinos were now angry, and Tommy DeSimone had become the one thing the Mafia could not tolerate, a liability with a gun. The real Tommy DeSimone was not a tragic figure. He was a warning about what happens when you let a teenager commit murder for fun and call him a soldier. A warning about what the life actually costs. A warning that every wise guy with a body count eventually becomes a body himself. Tommy DeSimone killed at least 8 people that we know of, probably more. He died at 28 in a basement in Queens. He left no grave. He left no marker. He left no last words. Just 8 names in 8 FBI files and a wife who, 47 years later, still does not know where her husband's bones are buried. That's the story Goodfellas didn't tell you. That's the truth behind the laughs and the trunk scenes and the funny how. The real Tommy DeSimone wasn't funny. He was a killer. And in the end, the only thing the life ever gave him was the same thing it gave everyone else who took it too far. A quiet death, an unmarked grave, and a debt finally paid in full. If this story moved you, Hit subscribe. We drop a new mob documentary every week on Iconic Files. Drop a comment below. Who do you want covered next? Sammy the Bull, Big Paul Castellano, Crazy Joe Gallo? Tell us in the comments. We're listening.